What I was really at the end of the day trying to teach my body to do is it's safe to sleep now. You're trying to send as many signals to your body that it's okay to rest. If you're new to this channel, you may have just stumbled upon this and thought, this guy's a healthy software developer? What's with all the bags under the eyes? Well, I was hit with a really bad chronic bout of insomnia about 6 years ago, and I lost my job, I lost my retirement. I could only sleep about 3 hours a night, off and on for the first 3 weeks, and for 2.5 to 3 years after that, I struggled with really serious sleep problems. And today I'd like to share with you how I actually overcame those. If you're looking for a video with just some simple tips for people that have a little bit of difficulty with sleep, this might not be the episode for you. But if you're struggling with serious insomnia that's been ongoing and it feels like there's nothing you can do to change it, I really hope this episode helps you out a lot. You know, when you don't sleep well, at least in my experience, it's really hard to make decisions that would seem like they'd be simple otherwise. I get angry easier. It's harder for me to keep my temper. It's harder to maintain your weight. Your emotional state just kind of goes up and down. And that's not a great, health position to be in if you want to be a strong programmer or really in any kind of tech position. So I'm going to go through 4 different categories with you today of these tips on how to help you have better sleep and deal with insomnia if you're a programmer. Now, different than some of my other videos, I'm going to crank through these pretty quick because there's about 25 of them and I'm going to spend a little bit less time than I might normally. But I'd like you to just go through these and keep an open mind. If you've struggled with insomnia at all, I really hope that you maybe try a few of these, because these aren't just things that I read about or that I've heard are good. I spent, 3 years of my life battling serious insomnia, and these are the things that actually worked for me. I'm going to talk about psychological, behavioral, environmental, and physical solutions to your sleep problems. So first, let's talk about psychological solutions. For me, these were the biggest ones. The first thing I'd recommend that you might want to consider is to wrap up your workday at the same time every day and actually have a routine for doing it. As programmers, it's really common, at least I experienced this, that I'd be working really hard the whole day and I wouldn't be done with whatever I'm working on. These projects are ongoing, right? And if I just kind of finished work and tried to wrap it up the best I could, after that, I'd be thinking about work all the time. And then when it came time to rest and to sleep, sometimes my mind would be sort of like trying to keep active the things that I had been thinking about the previous day as a way to prevent me from forgetting about them the next day that I worked. And one of the simplest things you can do is, let's say you stop work at like 5 o'clock every day, give yourself some notes. Basically, write down where you left off, what you were thinking about, what you're about to do. Now, this doesn't have to be anything that you share with like a Scrum team. In fact, I would recommend you don't do that. This is just for you if you're struggling with insomnia so that you can actually say my day's over with and I know where I'm going to start off and I don't have to just kind of obsess about it over the night and when I'm trying to sleep. And a lot of these other tips in the psychological section are going to get into specifically those types of things that happen to us in tech positions and where we're writing code and trying to build things. And rolling right into that, the second thing I'd recommend you might want to try, really helped me, is to keep a notepad by your bed. It's not uncommon that I'd be in the middle of laying down, trying to sleep at night when I was dealing with insomnia, and suddenly an idea would pop into my head for how to solve some code or something that I needed to tell somebody. And I was like, shoot, I hope I don't forget it. Well, if you don't get that out of your head somehow, you can start to get into rumination. I struggled with this a lot, where you just think about the same thought over and over and over again. And sometimes that's your brain just trying to help you make sure that you stay on top of things. And I don't remember who I heard this from. I've heard this from several different people. I'm sure this is all over the internet and different books and things. But, if you keep, and I wouldn't say your phone or a tablet, you want to stay off devices. But if you've got just like a, 3-ring, just regular old writing paper, little notepad next to your bed. Anytime you're trying to sleep and you start to think about, oh, I need to do this, or, oh, I hope I don't forget that, just grab it, write down your thoughts of whatever it is really quick, put it down and try to go back to sleep again. The third thing that was psychological that I changed that really helped me with sleep when I was struggling with my insomnia is scheduled worry time. In my life, and I've talked about this quite a bit in the episode that I did of the show on my burnout, I had a lot of personal issues. I had a lot of professional issues, and those all kind of collided. And they caused really uncomfortable feelings for me, meaning like I didn't want to feel the sadness, the anxiety, the stress that was associated with a lot of those things. And so I found ways to put them off. And I'm going to talk about that more as this episode goes on. But if you actually schedule a period of the day, for me, it was like 5:30 p.m. It was like kind of before dinner time. To spend, it's as long as you feel like you need. But for me, I would spend about 20 minutes just sitting, doing nothing else, not being on the computer. It's almost like meditating, but maybe not quite as focused. And just let myself think of, what am I worried about today? What's bothering me? What am I putting off? What do I think is going to happen that's really causing me a lot of stress? What do I need to change? And again, I'd have that notebook, the same one that I would use, next to the bed at night. If I had ideas, I would have that notebook during worry time. And the idea was to just get out on paper, the things that are stressing me out. You may have heard of morning pages is another really popular thing that people will do where they'll write kind of their thoughts in the morning. This is similar to that, but you're doing it closer to bedtime. But the idea is if you've got a lot of really stressful home life things, financial situations you're in, let's say relationships or your work, and I had kind of all of them, you got to give yourself some dedicated time to think about it. Force yourself to feel those emotions. Because if not, what would happen to me is I would lay down at night and then I would just start obsessively thinking about them because my brain's kind of going, hey, you put me off all day. Now you're going to be forced to think about this. And that's the last time you want that to happen. And related to that, the fourth thing I'd recommend is you do one thing every day that you've been putting off if you can. I experienced this when, I've shared, again, in my burnout episode, but all over the channel, how I was a marijuana addict for over 20 years. And my house, for example, I was behind on a lot of repairs, a lot of maintenance. The house kind of got dirty in some areas. Our bathrooms needed to be redone. There were just a lot of things that happen, wear and tear on a house when you have children, that when I was smoking weed all the time, I was putting them off. They were just falling behind. And when I was really in the middle of, really bad insomnia that first few years, I had a couple situations where, like, for example, I recaulked, got rid of the caulk, the sealant around my bathtub downstairs, which was gross. It was one of the ones that the kids shared. I'd been putting it off for years. And that night, I just slept like 9 hours. It was bizarre. And so I just kind of had the thought process, afterwards, I wonder if my sleep was better because I felt a sense of accomplishment. And then I started to do more and more things around the house, more and more things I was putting off. So, I know you can't do this every day. And some things you can't just obviously resolve in one action. But if you try to look at the things that are in your life that are really blocking you from moving forward, no matter how uncomfortable they are. Don't let them just sit there and fester. Pick one and try to get it done. Try to just get it out of the way. Just knock it out. That can really help your insomnia. It did for me, at least. And the fifth psychological thing you can do, and I harp about this on the channel all the time, is reduce your social media use. Social media does nothing for most people but cause discontent. We don't feel content with our life. We want more. We want what that other person has. We don't feel like we're enough. That's just going to cause you to feel like crap about yourself and compound the anxiety and the pressure that you might be feeling that's leading to your sleep problems. So if you're using social media, again, I'm not saying you can necessarily completely eliminate it from your life. I sure can't completely eliminate it, especially because I have a business and I promote somewhat on it. But consider just cutting it out as much as you can. So let's talk about behavioral solutions for getting better sleep. First of all, I think one of the things that really helped me was setting a realistic sleep and wake time. I had this kind of chronic pattern of where I would go to bed at like 10 o'clock at night, and then I would wake up at 4 in the morning. and I couldn't get back to sleep. And it would just happen over and over and over again. And I'd have such a hard time getting to sleep. It just was really, really, it was horrible. It was trashing my health. It didn't seem like there was anything I could do to fix it. And there's a thing called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI. And there's an app that you can get. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in this. Actually, it's free. I think it's through the Department of Health and Human Services or something. It's basically free through our government. Now, the content's kind of cringe. I'll tell you, the interviews and stuff aren't the greatest, but the information and the approach is really good. And one of the things they have you do is you kind of take this little test. They figure out when you go to bed, when you get up, how many hours do you sleep? Do you get up early, or do you have trouble falling asleep? Because people have varying different things, and they kind of recommend when you should go to bed. And when I did that, it actually recommended that I should go to bed at 12:30, basically a half hour after midnight every night. And I kind of thought, like, that's horrible. Like, why would I stay up that late? And it was like, I just started doing it. So I started trying to go to bed at 12:30. And remember, I was already exhausted, because when you have chronic insomnia, if you've never experienced this, you're tired all the time, all day, all morning, all afternoon, all night. You're always tired. You never pretty much feel rested. And so staying up until 12:30 was actually super hard for me. I had to kind of like read a book or do something other than be on the computer. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But setting a realistic sleep time and then a realistic wake time. Hey, you might want to go to bed earlier and get up earlier, but that may not just work for you if your sleep schedule is so off that your kind of biological clock, your circadian rhythm, you've heard this, that sort of has trained your body when to wake and go to sleep. Mine was just destroyed. Like, basically, it was so confused. It didn't know when to get up. It didn't know when, I should go to bed. It would just wake me up at odd hours of the day. And if you're in that kind of situation, check out that app. It might really help you out. Second, don't look at the clock if you wake up. This super helped me. I used to have my alarm clock, just kind of sitting on an end table by my head, and I'd try to sleep. And if I was just laying there forever, or if I woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't sleep, I would resist it for a while, but eventually I would just look, okay, what time is it? In the moment that you know that it's not morning, or just, let's say you realize it's only like 1:30 in the morning and you thought it was 4 in the morning, it's going to cause more anxiety. You're going to feel stressed out because you're like worried about not sleeping, and it kind of becomes this vicious cycle. So, I use my cell phone for my alarm. I just kind of set it. I put my phone in sort of sleep mode. I kind of put it, sort of almost under the bed. So I'm not using it or anything, but it wakes me with a quiet ringtone, and I can't like pick it up and check it. I don't want a clock that I can easily look at any time, because it's just too tempting to just want to check in on it and then create a bunch of anxiety. The third thing you can do behavioral to help your sleep is don't use your bed for anything but sleep or sex. That's it. Period. If you lay in your bed to read a book, if you lay in your bed to surf on the internet, on your iPad, if you lay in your bed to just do really anything else, and this is, again, I learned some of this through that CBTI app that you can get access to I was talking about, you're kind of training your body that I can be in my bed and stay awake because I'm doing an awaking activity, versus if you make sure you're never in your bed unless you're sleeping or having sex, you're basically training your body. Those are the only two things that once I get into my bed, my body is expecting. Because you want to train yourself, when I lay down in bed and however I lay down, that's a signal to my body that my body's used to, and it's welcoming that, hey, it's time to go to bed. And if it's got other kind of signals and too many other activities you're doing in the bed, again, reading on the internet, watching TV. Luckily, I've never had a TV in my room, but some people do that. You're just making it harder to get to sleep because your brain has too many other things it can get confused with that it thinks you're trying to do. And the fourth thing that you could change psychologically to really help with your sleep is stay off all devices for an hour before bedtime. This was incredibly hard for me at first, especially I was a long time late night gamer. I would play MMOs or RPGs, well into the night when I was in my 20s and even most of my 30s. And so, letting my brain just rest for an hour before bedtime was actually really hard. It was almost like a form of meditation in a way when you're so used to your brain always being entertained and always active. And, I'd also gotten in the habit of sometimes I'd be like, oh, it's bedtime. I'll just put on a podcast or I'll just put on a YouTube video. But even a podcast that's just informative, it's still stimulating your brain. It's getting you to think about all these things. And really, you want to let your brain rest and unwind and be forced to, again, think about the things you're worried about that may be residual from that worry time I talked about earlier in the episode. If you really want to just let yourself lay down, go to bed, and feel totally prepped for sleep. And the fifth psychological thing you can do, or behavioral rather, really both, this really kind of fits into both, is quit drinking or doing drugs. If you're an addict, and again, no judgment. I was an addict too. You can watch the episode I did on why so many programmers do drugs, or again, listen to it as a podcast if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But if you're doing drugs or you're drinking, it totally interferes with your sleep, even though, smoking marijuana, for example, can, after sort of the crash, help you sleep. You're going to have times when you can't use it. And especially if you get older, like me, I got to a point where it was destroying my life. You can, again, hear all about that in that episode. And so if you start to have to sleep again naturally, unassisted from alcohol or drugs or anything like that, it's actually a lot harder. So, if you're drinking, if you're doing any kind of drugs, I hate to say this, and I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just trying to look out for your health. If you've got insomnia, there's a pretty darn good likelihood that one of the things that you may be doing that's a serious contributor to it is your addiction. So next, let's talk about environmental solutions. What can you do to the sleep environment? Well, first, you've probably heard this before. You want to keep your room really dark and cold. When I first started having my really bad sleep problems, we had blinds, so I couldn't just, close blackout drapes. And my wife actually took aluminum foil and kind of like put it all over the windows to help me out at one point. Hilarious. It did help. I ended up moving into another room for a little while and just sleeping in a separate, bed from her till I could kind of get into a better spot for a while. But, if you can get the room as dark as possible, you don't want really any light. If you can, if you're freaked out sleeping in the dark, well, you might need a little something on, but, try to keep it just as dark as possible. Also, like when you're going to the bathroom, we've had night lights before that kind of let you see in the bathroom that have blue light in them. They're you want a night light that does not have any blue light in it, because that can wake you up. I mean, you've heard of blue light glasses before, right? Which are like glasses you can wear when you use the computer or you're on your devices at night, and it can help you maybe not stay up as much. I don't think it's a total solution. But also the temperature. If you're too hot in the middle of the night, and this used to happen to me, I wouldn't even realize my body was warming up. I would kind of start to kick the, blanket and stuff off of me. And the next thing I know, I'm like too cold, or I'm just, I'm not comfortable basically. And it would actually wake me up because my body temperature would just not be comfortable and I wouldn't be able to remain asleep. So I've just found if you keep your room fairly cold, I mean, not freezing, not like super uncomfortably so, but maybe that you feel a little bit cold on your face, you'll get warm once you're in the blankets, and it'll really help you actually stay in bed and stay asleep. Also, you can consider using a fan or a white noise generator if you have, noise around you or you're just easily woken by noise. My bedroom happens to be very kind of right by the living room and the kitchen. And sometimes my, adult children, before one of them moved out, but, they would go in there just to get something, not even that late. It might be like 10:30 or something, but I'm already in bed. And that would wake me up, or that would just make me uncomfortable. Because again, I was dealing with insomnia and I'm kind of angry. I'm kind of frustrated. I'm unsettled. So, you can get white noise generators. Some of them work well. Some of them don't. Some people hear things at different frequencies, but you can check these out on Amazon. I'm not going to list links for you. Just search Amazon for white noise generators. But, I just used a fan. That's pretty common too. Just a regular old fan, turn it on, point it kind of at an angle at the wall. And just that volume of that fan is enough to just kind of deaden the air a little bit. Now, it took a little bit getting used to sleeping like that, but that actually was one of the things too that just, again, a combination of all these things really helped pull me out of my insomnia. And another thing that really helped me with the environment that I changed is to use tungsten color light bulbs throughout your house. You may know when you go to replace your light bulbs, it doesn't matter if they're fluorescent or LED or whatever in your house, that you can either get kind of daylight color temperature, which is a little bit more white. You can get more of they might just call it nighttime, but it's basically tungsten. It's really the same color temperature that I actually use in these videos. I've got a light right there that's tungsten. And really, tungsten light bulbs or nighttime light bulbs or yellow light bulbs are meant to simulate candlelight. And you probably have noticed how, if you've ever done any kind of photography or you've heard about photography or you've just had your portrait taken outside, there's the golden hour, right? It's a period of time right before and kind of during sunset when the color of the lighting looks the most kind of flattering on people's faces. Well, also in addition to that, there's actually less blue light in the light that's closer to nighttime. And so if you have tungsten bulbs in your house, as it gets closer to nighttime and the lights start coming on and you don't have any external light sources from, the sun, obviously, that yellowed color temperature, it can kind of trick your brain a little bit into thinking, oh, the light is indicating it's the end of the day, or maybe there's a candle on. Now, dimmers are awesome too. I don't have those in all the spots I'd like in the house, but if you can even, I've heard of people that just keep their house almost like a cave after like 8 p.m. where it's just really dark because they want to just get their mind ready to go to bed. Again, this is if you're dealing with extreme insomnia. So I'm not saying this is something that just your average person who maybe had 1 or 2 bad nights of sleep is dealing with. This is if you've had an ongoing problem, consider switching to tungsten bulbs. The fourth thing you can do, this is environmental, but it's also kind of physical, which is my next category. But you can use, if you have sleep apnea, which I actually have, you can use a CPAP machine. This kind of helps assist with your breathing so that if you've heard of people that have sleep apnea, there's a variety of things that can cause it. But basically, you'll have intermittent moments in the middle of the night where you'll actually stop breathing and then your body will kind of wake you up to sleep again. And that can or wake you up out of sleep again to breathe. And that can actually wake you up if you're, again, having insomnia problems. So if you get a CPAP machine, it can really help. The other thing is, you can get them where they'll help you breathe through your nose. If you're a mouth breather, you've heard of this. Somebody who, when you sleep at night or just during the day, you inhale through your mouth, you're actually missing certain other things that you need in the air that only your nose can take in. I wish I could remember what they are right now. Someone will tell me in the comments, I'm sure. But yeah, a CPAP machine or just training yourself to sleep with your mouth closed at night. You may have even seen people can get tape. You can just tape your mouth closed at night and, it's kind of uncomfortable, but it trains you until you don't have to wear it anymore to just sleep through your nose. But yeah, you can get much better sleep if you have sleep apnea, if you use a CPAP machine, or if you are a mouth breather, using tape or a CPAP machine that lets you breathe through your nose. And the fifth environmental thing that I kind of changed, it's somewhat behavioral, it's somewhat environmental. And I'm not saying this is going to work for everyone, but it really helped me was sleeping on my side with a taller pillow. As a man, I have somewhat broader shoulders. If you have like a real flat pillow, you turn on your side, here's your shoulder, here's your head. If the pillow's like this, your head's going to be like that. You're going to be sleeping crinked all night. You're going to screw up your neck. It's going to feel awful. Your spine's all off. So I got myself a pillow that's like about that tall and it's really firm. Now, if I try to sleep on my back, my head's going to be like this and it's going to screw my neck. So like you basically can't sleep on your back. You can only sleep on your side with that pillow. But, I sleep on that thing and I kind of have my arms straight out. So it's just, it's propping up my neck. It's giving me really great support. My arm is straight out. I can breathe really well. And I just kind of lay on my side and splay my legs. And, there's tons of videos out there and a lot more research on the best sleeping position and different sleeping positions. And I don't want to say that's the best sleeping position, but for someone with sleep apnea and insomnia, it really, really helped me when I started sleeping on my side with the proper pillow. Okay, so let's get into physical things you can do. Well, first of all, and you've probably heard this, you really don't want to drink anything or eat after dinner if you're having insomnia problems. Now, for me, and this is partially just as a man, I would get up in the middle of the night and have to go to the bathroom a lot. And if you're urinating frequently, that can be signs of prostate problems. I definitely got checked by my doctor and stuff like that. For me, it was really just that it was a combination of I had too much sugar in my diet, which, if you eat too much sugar, it can start to bring on pre-diabetic conditions, which can cause you to go to the bathroom at night. But also if you're just drinking, decaf coffee, some kind of smoothie, or just even water too far past dinner time, that can really interrupt your sleep. Same with food. You eat a big meal, you try to go to bed, even if you're on your side, you're going to have indigestion. Your body's got to work to digest it. You may even get nauseous. So just, try to just eat a really sufficient meal at dinner time, get a lot of protein, make sure you're totally full, and then just do not eat past then, and try to avoid drinking as much as you can. The other thing that super, super helped me with my insomnia, but was the hardest to start to do, I'll be honest, it took me years till I could really get back to this, is doing some cardio exercise in the morning. You may have seen on my website, I've mentioned it maybe in one episode of the show, that what I really loved to do for exercise was ride road bikes. I live very close to a place here in Austin that has kind of like a private bike trail. It's called the Veloway. And I would go ride on that to work out, pretty much daily. I do like 5 to 7 laps on it. It's super beautiful. It's private. There's wildflowers everywhere. There's all kinds of animals. You'll see deer and all kinds of stuff. It's really cool. But when I had really serious insomnia, suddenly I couldn't do that anymore. I felt my muscles ached. My veins in my body felt kind of almost inflamed. My chest hurt. I felt delirium all the time. I mean, again, if you've had chronic, serious sleep problems, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you're going to be like, wow, that sounds really serious, man. Yeah, it is really serious if you're actually going through that. But, eventually I was able to push myself to, even if I felt totally awful, do a little bit of cardio. The easiest cardio thing you can do is, if you've ever seen those little personal trampolines, you can get these on Amazon. You can get these probably at Toys R Us or something. They're just like a little circular. They're probably like, 2.5 by 2.5 feet trampoline. You just put it on the ground, and you'll just see kids bouncing up and down on them. I mean, if you're either really overweight or just really out of shape, or you have no energy, even if you just hop up and down on that thing for 3 minutes a day, that will at least get your body's blood flowing enough that all the vitamins that need to flow through your body will do that. I talked about that in another episode of the show, how a lot of people don't realize if you're sedentary and you never exercise, you can be taking supplements and all this stuff. And there are certain, like vitamin D I think it's vitamin E is one of them. There's certain minerals and nutrients that they will not make it to all the cells in your body. And basically, you're eventually going to get sick and develop different types of disease. So, first thing you can do is hop on a trampoline. Beyond that, I'd say if you can go for a walk in the morning, even if you can only walk to the end of your street and back. When I first moved to Austin over 16 years ago, I was so out of shape, I could only really ride to the end of my road and back, and it was really short. But I started to do that a few times a week. Eventually, I rode past my road, rode a little bit further, and just kind of kept going till I got to the point that I could go out for, 5-mile rides, then 7-mile rides. And it just kind of went up and up and up from there. But, for me, riding my bike was great. But if you can if all you can do is a walk, you don't have to be power walking. Even if you're walking and you're feeling awful, just doing anything in that insomniac state to get your blood flowing a little bit will really help work out. It'll give you some time to think, to yourself. In my case, I pray, but whatever you can do to kind of clear the cobwebs of your mind, get your body moving, that's really going to help you sleep. The third physical thing you can change that will really help you, I think, if you're dealing with this and you're suffering from insomnia, that super helped me, is to reduce or cut out caffeine completely from your diet. Now, this is one of the things nobody wants to hear, because caffeine is an addictive substance, and coffee is delicious, and you associate it with that addiction. And so like the thought of not having the coffee every day, especially if like your job sucks, you have issues in your marriage, issues with your kids, if life's just hard, coffee can be one of those, I got to at least have my coffee. If I can't at least have my coffee, then life's not worth living. That's when though you've got a problem with addiction. I'm sorry to say, but I actually found that, and I didn't know this, that some people don't metabolize caffeine within 24 hours. Now, that means you actually start, let's say you drink a cup of coffee at 9 in the morning. Well, if you drink no other coffee at 9 a.m. in the morning, the next day, all the caffeine from that cup of coffee has not fully left your system yet. This is actually not as uncommon as you'd think. But if you have, struggled like I have with you're trying to go to sleep, you got all these thoughts going on, you've tried all these things, you've went and gotten sleep studies like I had, you've read all the books, you've tried all the tips, and nothing seems to work. I will tell you, when I finally quit, like completely quit caffeine, like zero caffeine, that was one of the first things. It didn't completely fix all my sleep issues because I still had a lot of personal stuff I needed to make progress on. Like I talked about, I still needed to have worry time. There's a combination of everything I'm talking to you about here. I wish I could say it's a simple, just do these 3 things. It's not, for me at least. Cutting coffee out super helped me. I found I do not metabolize caffeine within 24 hours. It could be 26 hours. It could be 30 hours. I don't even care. All I know is when I completely eliminated caffeine from my diet and drank none, it really helped me on the road to my recovery from my insomnia. The 4th thing you can do that will really help you not struggle with insomnia anymore, or just get better sleep if you're struggling with it, you want to be a great programmer, you want to, do well in your job in tech, is to drink water throughout the day. There's a couple different reasons for this, but let's just talk about related to insomnia. Remember how I mentioned earlier that like you really don't want to eat food or drink any water after, dinner time? Well, what I found was I wasn't drinking, this is just me, I wasn't drinking enough water throughout the day. And so then when I would try to not drink water or drink anything after dinner time, I would find myself wanting to just have like a little bit of oat milk or a little bit of water or, a decaf or, something. And it was my body kind of going, dude, I need more water. And I was just drinking, wasn't listening to it, wasn't giving it enough water. So, if you're getting up in the middle of the night having trouble because you're going to the bathroom, or you're having trouble just stopping eating or stopping drinking after dinner time, you got to force yourself to, have a cup of some sort or a jug or, whatever it is of water by your desk or available to you, that kind of throughout the day, make sure you're hydrating yourself, make sure you're giving yourself enough water. So when that cutoff point comes, you've absorbed so much water throughout the day, your body's not just like, I need water, and not letting you get to sleep. And the 5th and final thing that really helped me with my insomnia was a significant, at least, component. It wasn't just like a silver bullet, is I was actually really low on magnesium, not like chronically, so bad like I was going to be sick or something. But, my diet consisted of real high protein, some fat, some carbs, but I wasn't eating enough vegetables. I like a good salad, but usually it's got to have a lot of stuff in it. I actually eat salad and fried eggs for breakfast every morning now. That's just what works for me. My wife always makes us both a really awesome salad, and we, salad for breakfast. I never thought it would be good, but it's great with the eggs. But if you're not eating like at least 2 servings of serious greens, and I don't just mean like iceberg lettuce, I mean like broccoli or kale or, a salad with a bunch of green in it that's going to be, maybe a green smoothie, and not like, again, a green smoothie where, it looks green because it's got dye in it and you bought it from some place, but it's actually crammed full of sugar. I mean, it's got actual, green vegetables with a lot of magnesium in them. There's nuts you can look up to that have magnesium in them. But, if you're not eating enough of that, you may or may not know, magnesium helps your brain rest. It helps your muscles rest. It helps you go into the parasympathetic state, which is basically the state of your nervous system that it needs to go into to let you sleep, to get out of fight or flight. Again, I'm not trying to teach you all this stuff, you can go watch some, or listen to some Huberman podcasts. If you want all the neuroscience behind all this sleep stuff, I'm just trying to give you some practical tips here. But, if you can't get that amount of greens in, or you're just struggling, the other thing you can do that I did too is you can start taking magnesium supplements. Now there's different types of magnesium. It feels like every year there's a new debate as to which kinds are most effective and aren't. Go ahead and leave some comments for people. If you maybe know more about this or you want to share your opinion, I don't feel like I really feel confident, honestly, that any one of them, I think some of them I know aren't as good, but educate us if you're somebody who's more up on this than me. But if you find a good magnesium supplement that you can take, again, after exercising, riding my bike all these years, the psychological issues I had from my addiction, the worry that I was in, I was always in this constant state of kind of fight or flight. And so when I tried to sleep, again, the caffeine, eliminating it, all these other things that I did, what I was really at the end of the day trying to teach my body to do is it's safe to sleep now. You're trying to send as many signals to your body that it's okay to rest. There's nothing that's going to, that you need to fear. There's nothing you're going to panic about. There's not, the world's not going to blow up. You're not going to lose your job. And even if you do, just finding a way to chill out through all that so that you can actually let yourself sleep. Have you ever struggled with insomnia as a programmer or someone in tech? What have you tried? What's worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, thanks.